Okay, well, good morning, everyone. I think it's safe to begin now. It's 11. So thank you, everyone, for making time for the launch of Localis's latest report, At the Right Level, a strategic case for city-led growth, innovation, and renewal. I'm Jonathan Warren. I'm the Chief Executive of think tank Localis, and it will be my great pleasure to moderate today's panel launch session. Now, the purpose of this will be to ask, how does Oxford as a city leverage its vital regional and nationally strategic role as the country's leading knowledge economy hub to accelerate the much needed recovery? Before I introduce our very top panel today, a few words of gratitude are in order, as ever. Firstly, thanks to all our colleagues at Oxford City Council for their help and support with our work. Too many names to mention, like awards, but principally, thank you so much, Caroline Green, Adrian Colwell, and Tom Bridgman. Thank you too for all the participants at our various evidence sessions, from taking in experts from Oxford itself, the wider region, and nationally to help buttress and support our work. Huge thanks from the Localis side, huge thanks to Zain Qureshi for his single-minded determination and zeal in making such a strong case for place, and for Joe Fyans, our head of research, for grounding it. Before I introduce the panel, quickly set the scene in terms of housekeeping rules. We're following this on Twitter. There is a hashtag right level for those posting. How do we come to our report and our findings? Well, Oxford, one of our country's leading cities, is one that has a global impact and a leadership role in areas such as medical science, biotech. In recent months, the city's unique strength and assets as the prime national knowledge economy hub have been strongly reinforced by the success of the AstraZeneca vaccine. So Oxford must and will therefore be a focal point for post-pandemic growth and recovery. Oxford is also a key part of the Oxford to Cambridge arc, and with a GVA of nearly 7 billion a year, it's one of the few parts of the UK that makes a net contribution to the exchequer. So, faced with the need for robust social and economic strategies for recovery, we think at Localis there's an imperative to make a strong, clear case for urban leadership to drive renewal from the pandemic. So with strong city-led governance, we say Oxford should be able to use its unique assets and particular strengths to recover possibly stronger than before. Focusing these assets in the right direction would streamline the city's recovery and levelling up efforts. So with this in mind, the report today, At the Right Level, a strategic case for city-led growth, innovation and renewal, which we'll make available to all participants, everyone registering after today's event, presents Oxford's case for city governance as a unique, compact global city, as simply the best means for retaining and building on the strategic, regional and national advantages. So in our independent report today, Localis is calling for, in support of this vital national and regional asset, city governance simply at the right level. It's got to be the Goldilocks, just right. Acknowledging Oxford's role as a compact global city, but within the aegis of governance frameworks, not just those vested in Oxford City Council, but also extending sub-regionally across Oxfordshire County Council and Oxlec, and wider regionally and nationally via the Oxford to Cambridge arc. Why is this? Well, simply to provide sufficient power and resource at the right level, which would allow the city to deliver for its residents and to further accelerate the growth potential of the arc and the country nationally. We're also talking about the ability to grow at the city level. No surprise from a Localis report calling for fiscal decentralisation and devolution on things like business rates and progressive use of council tax bands to support that. In terms of necessary funding and investment, Localis is calling for a £1 billion endowment fund to support good growth within the city. to address the elements of budgetary uncertainty, which all local authorities are facing, talking about a single long-term investment strategy which would unlock targeted investment in key physical and transport infrastructure requirements. It would also build the capacity needed to develop a strong skills supply chain and give Oxford strategic planning powers to meet its own decarbonisation targets, as well as allowing for unique investment strategies on social, digital and smart energy infrastructure. A lot of this too is about relationships with the county and the ARC. We're calling for co-decision powers, perhaps with Oxfordshire County Council on vital local transport infrastructure decisions, perhaps some strategic planning powers, and perhaps the ability for the city to go further than national and regional targets when it comes to setting planning standards and design codes relating to the city's own good growth targets. Also talking about, in terms of the arts future growth, and again, Susan has mentioned your Faster Cities growth report last week, giving the cities, including Oxford, Cambridge and Milton Keynes, a clear voice on governance through representation on the proposed ARC growth body. Now, we're talking about a lot of national and regional, but also there's that case for social contract with Oxford's own citizens. So we're talking maybe a statutory convening role alongside county and ARC colleagues of a skills supply chain for the City of Oxford, one that focuses on maximising the human potential of the city's own population. And alongside that, calling for a transparent community asset and social infrastructure investment strategy as part of Oxford's revised social contract with its residents. So they're kind of the key Localis findings from our report. We'll be sharing a copy alongside a 2-page summary post-event if you haven't seen it already. So that's to set the scene for today's debate. We've got, as I said, an expert panel, and I'm going to, who we've got here, so we've got, in alphabetical order, Councillor Susan Brown, leader of Oxford City Council. We also have Sarah Hayward, Managing Director of Advanced Oxford. Great pleasure to have Bev Hindle, Executive Director of the Oxford to Cambridge ARC. Great pleasure to have Jeremy Long, Chair of OxLEP, the Local Enterprise Partnership. And finally, great pleasure to have Dr. David Prout, Pro-Vice Chancellor for Planning and Resources at the University of Oxford. So, what's going to happen now? I'm going to invite our speakers in that alphabetical order: Susan, Sarah, Bev, Jeremy and David, to respond to the report, 3 to 5 minutes, what you think is most important to take forward for this recovery, why it's important locally, regionally and nationally. Once our speakers have had their turn to contribute, we're then going to look into the Q&A box, which my colleague Tanika is moderating, to widen the debate amongst ourselves. Final reminder, the hashtag today is right level. And I'm going to ask Susan, if you could kindly unmute yourself, kick things off, and really get to the heart of the matter. What's most important from this report and this agenda from your perspective, Susan?
Well, thanks very much, Jonathan. And I'd like to start by saying that I really welcome this important piece of work from Localis, and I'm also delighted to be invited to speak alongside such distinguished colleagues. I think the issues highlighted in the report and the ideas it puts forward have truly found their time. Central to this is the recognition of the growing importance of compact global cities like Oxford. I think the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, has shown us the resilience and strength of England's local government in keeping our communities safe. In Oxford's case, it has also demonstrated our value as a national knowledge economy hub. I mean, as Jonathan was saying earlier, our city used our unique biotech and medical science assets to lead research on the virus, develop a proven vaccine, manufacture the vaccine, and develop and trial novel treatments for the longer term effects of the disease. All that happened in Oxford, and we're proud of all of those who have contributed to this work. Oxford's contribution has been at global level. If the government is looking for growth champions to help the post-COVID, post-Brexit economic recovery that this country so desperately needs, it should again look to Oxford. Again, as Jonathan referenced earlier, and it is very clear in the report, Oxford's economy contributes nearly £7 billion per year to the exchequer, making us one of the few parts of the UK that are net contributors. So quite simply, investing in Oxford generates money to support the levelling up agenda, locally, regionally and nationally. Part of our strength comes from the fact that Oxford City is a core element in a number of distinct but overlapping economic geographies, which again, I think Jonathan referred to in his opening remarks. These include the wider functional economic area of the city, which is often known as the knowledge spine, that runs from sort of north to the south of the city. We're also linked regionally to other cities across the Oxford-Cambridge arc, as well as in the Thames Valley. And again, as Jonathan briefly referenced at the start, as leader of Oxford City Council, I also chair the Fast Growth Cities Group, bringing together cities across a slightly wider geography than just the arc. The opportunities are vast, but to make the most of them means aligning our strategies across administrative boundaries, both locally and regionally. And actually, that's something that we've got great experience of in Oxford. We've been doing it very successfully in Oxfordshire for a number of years. Our collaborative approach involves working closely with neighbouring councils, working through the Oxfordshire Local Economic Partnership, the Oxfordshire Growth Board, and these days with other cities across the arc. As a result of these partnerships, we've had a city deal and more recently the Oxfordshire Housing and Growth deal. It's delivering a shared approach to spatial planning and a vision for Oxfordshire in 2050, as well as our recent local industrial strategy and economic recovery plans at city and county level. Importantly, our Oxford approach is informing principles and, in due course, I hope, strategies to boost environmental sustainability and the inclusive economy across the arc. At Oxford City Council, we see our role as a convener and facilitator. Over the past year, I'm really proud that we've brought our city partners together to focus on the need for an inclusive economy and recovery that addresses in particular the wide educational attainment and skills gap in our city that's sadly being made worse by the pandemic. We are also focusing on the need for coordinated action to support our retail economy, which has been badly hit with the loss of tourism and students from the city. A temporary problem, we hope, but we do need to take action to address it. And very recently, we set up the Oxford Zero Carbon Partnership, acknowledging the need for knowledge sharing and collaborative efforts to build back better and retrofit our city in order to get our carbon emissions to net zero by 2040. 21 leaders of our key anchor institutions, such as the universities, the county council, the NHS, and local businesses, including BMW, Mini and Westgate, joined with us to work towards this common goal. The council is similarly bringing together many of the same partners to shape the creation of Oxford West End Innovation District, which is the largest city centre science and tech-led regeneration opportunity in the arc. We're also working together to redevelop Oxford Station and expand rail capacity through Oxfordshire. So Oxford's ability to invest in its own good growth will allow for wider benefit to be seen across the arc and, crucially, make the city a better engine for growth within it. With strong city-led governance, Oxford is able to use its unique assets and particular strengths to recover stronger than before. I think we've been doing a good job, but what the Localis report finds is that we could achieve much, much more if we were granted sufficient devolved powers and resources. Greater city-level governance would allow us to deliver for our residents and to further accelerate the growth potential of the arc and the country. That must include tackling housing and transport bottlenecks, delivering infrastructure at pace, and a long-term investment strategy. Additionally, Oxford, alongside other cities key to the arc's future growth, including Cambridge and Milton Keynes, must have a clear voice within the arc's governance, including direct representation on the proposed arc growth body. Cities are crucial to the ARC's future economic growth, and their distinct voice is needed. Government is fond of talking about devolution, but too often its tendency has been to centralise. Localis has some eye-catching proposals around a city endowment fund, levy-raising powers, and joint decision-making on transport and strategic planning, all of which merit a closer look. Common to all of these is the recognition that compact global cities need to be able to stretch their wings if they're to achieve their true potential. Over the past year, our city has already demonstrated its importance on the world stage. Working with our partners across Oxfordshire and beyond, we want to see the power of Oxford unleashed. Thank you.
Many thanks indeed, Susan. I'm going to now invite Sarah Hayward, Managing Director of Advance Oxford, to make your contribution, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Well, thank you again for the opportunity to participate in this discussion today. It's probably worth just contextualising my comments by explaining that Advanced Oxford is a not-for-profit membership organisation for innovation-based companies and organisations operating in Oxford and the Oxford region. And that context of companies operating across the region, I think, is incredibly important. And I want to welcome within the report the focus on the city, but the city in the context of a number of geographies. So as we've already heard from Susan, we need to think about Oxford and the contribution it's making on a number of different geographical axes, which include its important role in the golden triangle of life sciences alongside London and Cambridge, in the context of the ARC, spreading across to Cambridge and beyond. We need to also understand that we focus south as well as part of the Thames Valley and the southeast of England, and have an important role to play in terms of UK PLC. I particularly welcome a number of the things that the report has identified, the first of which is the focus on skills and the importance of a city that is contributing skilled members of the workforce, which is an issue that is of crucial importance to our membership. All of the companies that belong to Advanced Oxford really draw their strength from the skills space and the ability to be able to draw from a very large and wide labour market. But we recognise that there is much more that we can be doing to ensure that the local labour market is supporting the innovation ecosystem, both within the city and also across the region. I think one of the things from our perspective was very important to see in a piece of work that we published in November of 2020, which was focused on the green economy and the green recovery within Oxfordshire, is that there are a cadre of companies that really value the opportunity to be located within a city centre location. They understand that the access to the amenities, to the culture, to the buzz of a city environment can be extremely attractive in drawing in skills and retaining them. So again, the focus on place and the focus on issues around planning, on transport, etc., are incredibly important for us to allow us to deliver that vision of a dynamic city, which is at the heart of the region, and something that a place that can act as a centre for innovation, and not just for further and higher education, but can actually be a place for companies to locate as well. So I would just like to finish by saying that one of the critical issues for us in terms of success is around speed of decision making. We would like to see systems of governance, systems of government locally that really speed up decision making and allow us to act collectively in order to ensure that Oxford and the Oxford region continues to be a significant driver of economic growth, both for the region, but also for UK PLC. Thank you.
Sarah, many thanks indeed for your contribution. I'm next going to invite Beth Hindle to unmute. Thank you very much. Please take the stage, so to speak.
Jonathan, thank you very much, and thank you again for having me today. It's been a real honor to be part of the panel today, and I too welcome a great amount of the report, and I'll emphasize a few particular areas. And as usual, the previous speakers have said a few things I wanted to say, so I'll perhaps provide some emphasis. First and foremost, I really appreciate the way that the report highlights the role that Oxford does, can and will play as part of the Oxford to Cambridge arc. I mean, not so unobvious that it is part of the brand, obviously, and part of the name, and it is a very major anchor as part of that. But this is not about an east-west sort of anchor. This is, as the report says, there is an opportunity for Oxford to be central to that narrative as it develops and as it goes forward. And I think that's only positive and can build on a strength. But I think it's also really important to understand the context of the arc for me. And one of the things that we've tried to be able to deal with, and it's tough for some people to understand, it is a place-based approach that the arc is trying to take, but it is not a place. It is a strength of many places that is going to be able to make the arc a success. And Oxford, recognized as one of those key drivers of place, has a real significant role to play in being able to make sure that it's successful. But it's not without its problems. We do need to be better connected. We do need to be better connected, as Susan was saying earlier, between and amongst our system elements and our system lead places, whether that be Milton Keynes, whether that be Oxford or Cambridge. So I think there's real opportunity to build through those collaborations that Susan in the report identified. Whether it be on a county level, whether it be on a sub-regional level, whether it be on a sectoral level, or whether it's on a regional level. So I think there's lots of layers of opportunity there for Oxford to play a very leading role. I think there is a point that Susan mentioned, which is around alignment. And again, I think the report starts to hit this, which is, look, collaboration is hard work. Collaboration can be very difficult. Partnership is not always easy, and there's lots of different people involved. One of the real challenges the government's going to have in setting up this growth body for the ARC, which is its intention, it announced that on the 18th of February, is how does it get all those sectors represented? How does it get all those voices out as part of a governance model going forward? Whether it be small, medium, large businesses, whether it be people from the innovation sector, whether it be academia, whether it be entrepreneurs. And then again, whether it's in local government, is it by political party? Is it by size of urban center? Is it by county, etc.? One of the real challenges, it cannot leave those voices behind because it will need strong leadership at those levels as well as at a regional level. It's not a replacement for, it's not a binary either or. These things all have to work collaboratively together to be able to make sure that it reaches the potential, because the ARC isn't, the ARC is nothing if it's not about adding value somehow. Otherwise, the systems that are there are very capable of delivering things within their own systems. The ARC potential is whether there's more power being brought together with the regional collaboration. And I think this report talks about that. I think it tries to highlight the opportunity of being able to grow an economy without losing the place in the sense of place. And that's obviously very important to the people of Oxford and Cambridge and other places across the ARC. How do you gain more without losing identity? That will be a real challenge, but it does need clear leadership at a local level to make sure that's heightened. I think there's also some really interesting stuff coming out of the report around leveling up. And I was very pleased on the 18th of February when government actually made sure that leveling up was seen as part of the ARC agenda. I think there was a narrative that was being played that somehow, this part of England doesn't need to be thought of as having its own leveling up agenda. But as the city very well knows, these are not all equal places. They have their own problems and issues to sort out locally, but they are not unique to Oxford or to Cambridge or Bedford or some of other. These are areas where we can work together to collaborate on a leveling up agenda, if at the very least to drive a more productive economy. And I think actually at the end of the day, for the very best, to be able to make sure we're delivering a more equal and a more fair society going forward. And I think Oxford has played a significant role in that in the past, not only in its own local system, working with its neighboring districts and county on inclusive growth, but I think it's been very key in wanting to make sure that is an idea and a concept and a policy direction that the ARC takes as a whole. Again, very much welcome that as being something that needs to look at going forward. Sarah touched on it, but she said it probably more eloquently than I will. but none of our places can live on their own. And so we do need to make sure, particularly around connectivity and around labor supply and whether that's digital connectivity or physical connectivity going forward, how do we make sure that we have strong, not just city governance, but how do we have strong collective prioritization models that allow infrastructure investment and wider investment to take place to be able to make sure that we can create the best opportunities for our cities and our towns and our places to thrive. I think that's a very key element of what's being proposed here, and something we need to explore further. Because otherwise, in a very disproportionate or if you like, non-collaborative way, which is perhaps one of our failures in the past, is we don't necessarily come up with the most sustainable and the best answer going forward. And that's the last area I really wanted to cover off, which again, I think is a real opportunity for Oxford. It pushes the limit generally around innovation and new thinking around the way we should be thinking about environment, social outcomes, etc. But it has a real opportunity through its own initiatives. And I think the recommendations of this report are sound. Why can't it be leading and setting new standards and new goals to attain, whether that's an environmental sustainability, whether that's an inclusive growth or an economic growth? The ARC, if nothing else, will need to follow the leadership of certain places who can move at a faster pace than others and learn from them and work with them to be able to benefit the wider place. I think the city of Oxford and particularly working closely with the university that it does, but also its neighboring authorities should be able to push that agenda very well. And that should be to the benefit of the whole of the ARC, not just to Oxford or to Oxfordshire. Lastly, I think the report, the central theme must be that there's an opportunity for Oxford to play that leadership role in developing and delivering the power of collaboration. And I, as Sarah said, I really welcome that initiative and that drive, because if we're going to achieve not just recovery in its immediate sense, but something that is sustainable and creates better places and outcomes for people going forward, it will take the kind of thinking that's coming out of this report to be able to help us do that. Jonathan, thank you for the opportunity to comment.
Bev, thank you so much. That's Bev Hindle, Executive Director, Oxford to Cambridge ARC. Next up, he's ready, unmuted, Jeremy Long, Chair of Oxlab. Please, let's have your views. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. Good morning, everyone. I think it's a very good report, and actually going through the report over the weekend, I think one of the things that struck me is how interrelated both the strengths and the challenges that Oxford faces. Some of those challenges have been there for some time, and as all of us already referred to, some of those challenges have been absolutely exacerbated by the events of the last year or so. What comes through are the strengths that the city has, but also the need for absolute joined up action to tackle some of those that have been present for some time and that do need addressing in a way that only comes, I think, from a joint understanding, the kind of knowledge that comes out through studying the report. And a number of the other speakers have already referred to areas like skills, where the city has enormous strengths and has been hugely successful in attracting talent, both nationally and internationally, at the same time as having long-standing issues of poor skills attainment. And we must take the opportunity as we begin to look at how we recover, for how we address the longer term issues, as well as continuing to be as powerful and as dominant as we have been in an international stage in bringing some of the best of international talent here. One of the other things I think that one is struck by in looking at the report is how much place-based knowledge is going to be critical in how we take the city forward. What does place-based approach really mean? It means bringing together all of the aspects that make any particular area successful. What we want is a vibrant local economy. We want residents, we want businesses, we want local people to be successful in coming to and living in their own communities. And as we're all saying, that city needs to look both beyond itself and within itself in terms of how it creates that success. Even Oxford as a city has, if you like, villages within it. And clearly its place is absolutely looking beyond in the region and indeed internationally in terms of how it plays its role. Where we are, I think, is at the point of being able to work, as we have done already collaboratively, even more so in looking at what solutions we can bring to the region as part of the ARC, but absolutely to the city itself. What we want is the city to be successful commercially, in retail terms, for attracting new businesses into the city as we look at new technologies. And that requires a joining up of what business is looking for in terms of its demands on space, its demands on skills, and joining up what the local authority can provide, and above all, what the local academic institutions can provide and the local schools can provide in terms of skills into that. I think what we've already heard in terms of the need for action, what we also do need is levels of catalytic investment. We need levels of investment to come here, which will in turn attract even more significant investment to continue to grow the economy and to continue to create prosperity. I think the report is a very important one that we should all take away and study and look alongside the plans that we already have had in place to see how we can sharpen, as Sarah has referred to, the action and the effectiveness of what we look to do on the ground. And I very much welcome it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. Maybe we're saving the best until last. David Prout, could I invite you to unmute and share your thoughts on the report and what this means in the wider context, if you may. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Jonathan, and thank you to other colleagues. Thank you, Susan, just for your opening comments about the contribution of the university to tackling the problems of the pandemic. I mean, that is our academic community that has done that, but with the support of the Central University. I absolutely endorse what Jeremy was saying about the strengths and challenges which sort of go hand to hand in a place like Oxford. So the report focuses quite a lot on sort of leadership and governance issues. And I would say this about that subject, that the university really does want strong, united leadership for Oxford and the surrounding area that focuses long-term on a stable, well-established common agenda. We welcome the ARC, we welcome the work of the LEP, we welcome the work of the City Council and County Councils, we welcome the City Deal, the Housing Deal, and all the campaigns for additional rail investment. And the issues I think that are important to us looking forward are the same as what Susan has said. We need space for the university to grow and change. We need housing for our staff and students. We need transport improvements to the environment and reduction in pollution. We need good education and schools. We need a skilled workforce. And we want a good quality life for everyone, not just for the employees of the university. Now, people talk a lot about town and gown. I don't actually endorse that division at all. The community is the university and the university is the community. And I think what we want to do as a good, strong, resilient partner is to play our role in delivering the agenda that our local elected leaders set out for us. And I hope, Susan and colleagues, you find the university does that to the best of its ability. We expect to hold you to account for what you've committed to, and we expect you to hold us to account to make the best possible contribution as well. That's what I wanted to say, Jonathan.
Many thanks indeed, David, and many thanks to all our panelists. So we've all had an opportunity to explain the report, cut out some of the key issues from this. So now, in the remaining 25 minutes or so, we're going to throw it out to you, the audience, putting questions through the Q&A to raise either particular issues to any of the panelists or wider issues. So let's have a quick fish in. So I've got a good question opening for all the panelists from Catriona Riddell. Obviously, Catriona's had a lot to say recently on strategic planning. Catriona asks, a shared vision of what long-term good growth looks like will be essential for all partners in Oxfordshire, but also in influencing the Oxcam ARC. She adds, the Growth Board has already developed a strategic vision, but how do we ensure this is delivered with traction on all partner plans, strategies and investment priorities if the Growth Board is limited in its decision-making powers, especially direct fiscal responsibilities? So obviously this is a report about relationships and partnerships and interdependency. Any of the panelists want to tackle sort of Catriona's main question about how we ensure this all moves in good lockstep across the broader region? Susan, your hand's up first, please take it.
Thanks very much. Well, I mean, I think Katrina's question is a really good one, but I think it is also to some extent answered by some of the comments that I was making right at the beginning about how all of these different partnerships work together and in tandem. In the best possible scenario, it works bottom up, and that is what I think we are all seeking to aim for. So we start in Oxford's case with the city. We develop our vision for the city, which indeed we did do. Several years ago, we've developed the start of our vision for the city and our local plan. We then take that and we feed that into the kind of vision that we have across the county, which we have done for just very recently, the strategic vision that Katrina refers to, that the Growth Board have now developed. And then from that, we feed into the ARC. My concerns are when it goes the opposite way round and that we potentially have, you know, a top-down vision coming to us from government. So I think very much fitting with the nature of your report, Jonathan, I think what we are arguing for is that bottom-up approach, which I think will deliver the best for local people. And we have been, or I have been arguing very much throughout the whole process of being leader of the City Council and sitting on the LEP, the Growth Board, the leaders of the ARC group, to make sure that our vision for our city, which is of an inclusive economy, bringing people up in terms of skills and their economic abilities to participate in our economy, we are trying to make sure that that gets fed into the ARC along with our sustainability goals, because we think that's the way forward. We don't want a cheap, economy exploiting labour. We want to make sure that people have a fair wage, are skilled up, and we think that's the best way for our city and the ARC and Oxfordshire to go forward.
Many thanks, Susan. David, you've got your hand up next, please.
Thanks, Jonathan. And I agree with what Susan's just said. I mean, I think the government, there's an open invitation from government for Oxford and the other communities in the ARC to come forward with plans which are fundable, implementable, and which will drive growth. And I think, the question is, can the different bits of government come together and join up behind an agenda which the government can then back? And I think that the work that Oxford City Council is doing around the railways in Oxford is a good example of that. You know, the City Council's been banging on about this for blinking ages, Susan. But it is at last having some impact. And I think that's the kind of leadership that we need, you know, strong, consistent, long-term visionary leadership from our local politicians, and I think the government will respond to that. You're on mute, Jonathan.
Thank you very much, David. Bev, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, just really quickly to build off of both of David and Susan. I think the difference that's happening, I saw Jeremy's hand go up. Several of us were bleeding at government for a long time about the rail station at Oxford, I have to say. And one of the things that's quite interesting to me is, so what's changed? Well, I think what's changed is what David's highlighting. I think there is a government now in the ARC context particularly, which sees, wait a second, there are opportunities here where we need to maybe take something that is not the normal sort of systematic approach. There needs to be something that's far more place-based approach that says, look, these are areas of success that need help to continue to be a success to drive UK PLC. We need to find those initiatives where we can actually sponsor these active growth areas who are prepared to do the right thing in a collaborative way. But that's the point I wanted to add. I get a sense working with the ARC team in government where we are adding the most sense is that we are showing we are prepared to enter that space with leadership and say what we think is the right thing to do. And we are prepared to say this is the right way to work in a collaborative way, but also through independent leadership. So I think there is a real space, I think David is suggesting, and it goes back to Katrina's point. I absolutely, because I guess I was, there's a little bit of bias here, but I think one of the reasons why we felt there was such a good idea of driving a vision in Oxfordshire and driven through the work that Oxford City had done in the past is because get yours in first. And why wouldn't you try to shape that agenda and then make somebody try to find a really good reason to disagree with you? Because actually what's coming out of Oxford, what's coming out of Oxfordshire, what's coming out of the whole system that Sarah was talking about earlier is really positive, good stuff for UK PLC. So there is an opportunity to take that space, and it's really great to see this report. Some of the activity going on right now is actually try to claim that space in a positive way.
Many thanks for your comments there. Jeremy, did you want to come in?
Well, only quickly. I mean, I think 2 or 3 thoughts, building on what everyone has just said. I mean, I think we should take the advantage of the attention that has been brought to the ARC and to the region. There is no question, I think, as David said, that government nationally, centrally, is looking more closely at the ARC, I think has realised the potential in a way that perhaps it had not been brought to its attention in the same way a few years ago. I think we should absolutely take that advantage. We know there is more cross-departmental focus in Whitehall on the ARC and Oxford and Oxfordshire. The other way, though, I think undoubtedly the solutions exist at a much, much more local level. And those solutions, and I can see some of the other questions about how we do make a difference and some of the things Susan's saying about the Inclusive Commission and the work that needs to go on. Those solutions need to be very intensive. They need to be very local. They need to have the right level of focus and the right level of resources. And that is absolutely a bottom-up issue. So I think we can build on both. And as Bev said, what we need to do is put forward the arguments for where we know things can work on the ground differently, but need the right level of focus and resources. And that's where I think the joined up approach locally can make and will make a real difference.
Many thanks, Jeremy. Finally, Sarah, would you like to comment on that interdependence issue of making it work everywhere?
So I guess the question is actually better posed to some of the other panelists than to me. But I guess that one of the comments that I would say would make in response to that is, I think it's absolutely essential that we have clear long-term strategic direction in terms of our vision for what we want the city to be and what we want it to be in the context, as I said, of these other geographical axes in which we work. You know, if I can just comment, I mean, people have mentioned in response to this question about the work that is now progressing on development of rail and the rail link east to west, and the opportunity that provides also to link up Oxfordshire in a better way. But from the perspective of many businesses and many organisations that we work with, it's been a very long time coming, and still that vision of connected rail across Oxfordshire that links up, for instance, the science parks and the different parts of the knowledge economy is still a very long way away. So as I said before, we recognise that there are pieces of the jigsaw that need to be put together, but we need a clear idea of what that jigsaw is going to look like, and we need to continue to drive for the fastest possible implementation and action to deliver some of these key pieces of infrastructure that allow us really to deliver the good growth that the question focused on.
Many thanks, Sarah. Now, quite a lot of comments in the Q&A box. Firstly, we weren't able to make this a bus back better report, though. And in terms of the work on communities, the essay question wasn't really diving into the issue of community resilience, although we ourselves put out a report on that at the back end of last year. But taking it up to the panel, taking those lots of questions about environmental, net zero, social value, as well as that bottom up issue. In terms of Oxford's growth and in terms of the wider ecosystem it finds itself in, how do panelists think we can build in a genuine commitment to achieving social value, net zero, and with a nod to the bus report from earlier in the week, sort of cleaner transport, better infrastructure, given what we've got to play with? Susan, you've got, is that your hand?
It was, yeah. Thanks. I mean, thanks for the questions, Phil, about buses. Phil and I talk about buses a lot together, so and he's right. One, buses have been massively neglected by successive governments, in spite of the fact that they are the main source of public transport for most people. And it has been disappointing for many years, the lack of thought about how buses fit into the transport infrastructure. And they mustn't be forgotten, because it is a cheap, relatively speaking, way of sensibly transporting people around. So we have to make sure we don't get totally just hooked on building, light railways or railways of different sorts, because the infrastructure costs of that are hugely greater. I mean, I think the Localis report has got some interesting suggestions about transport infrastructure and how we deliver it well or better. Because I think some of the frustrations that I have as leader of the City Council is the lack of influence that we have over transport infrastructure, even though that is absolutely key to our city's economy, and the inability to sort of control those levers is a concern. I'll be blunt. So I think it is really important we work as closely as we can with the County Council on these issues, and we support the overall aims of decarbonising transport and our city, but we do need to be making faster progress on some of these issues, and buses will be a key part of that. And so I would pledge to Phil that I'll continue working with him on these issues, and that we will be continuing to make the case for transport to be improved, public transport to be improved, for pedestrian and cycling to be made easier for people, and for a reduction in polluting vehicles in our city.
Many thanks, Susan. Any other panelists want to come in on how we can, that issue of how we maximise social and environmental? Jeremy, please, over to you.
I mean, I think just building on what Susan said about transport, and I know that Phil Southall believes in, it's understanding on a place-based basis the role that transport plays. And what I mean by that is all forms of transport, as Susan referred to, whether it is buses or individuals being able to walk safely or cycle. It's the role that then plays in making successful, vibrant communities, in allowing individuals to thrive and businesses to thrive. And it's the whole time placing the role of transport in terms of what it can facilitate in terms of successful communities. And that again requires the kind of local knowledge and understanding of the role that transport plays. And I think, as we're seeing, changes in uses of transport, fundamental changes maybe in the uses of neighbourhoods and communities, we've all got to perhaps re-examine what have been paradigms, what have been ways of us understanding the relationships between transport communities. We've certainly got to look at it afresh in the light of an economic recovery, but really put it in its place. And as I said earlier, I think almost regard even the city of Oxford as a series of smaller villages or smaller communities in the one way, in looking at it at very, very local basis, and in another, in a much, much broader context as to how Oxford, how individuals, how businesses can thrive, but in part of a much, much wider region. But it's always putting transport in its context.
Many thanks indeed for that considered response, Jeremy. David, please, over to you.
Yeah, I don't have a solution to the bus issue in Oxford, but the university has supported the initiatives that the City Council has taken around tackling congestion and reducing pollution. And our position has always been, consistently the same on this for a while, which is that we support measures to reduce the amount of traffic in Oxford on condition that we improve the bus services, the walking and the cycling facilities. And I think the two go hand in hand. And so we are absolutely behind what Susan and the team at the City Council has been proposing on that aspect of the environmental agenda. I'm speaking for the university, by the way. That doesn't always apply to all the colleges who are independent institutions, but you understand what I'm saying, Susan. Just on the environment more generally, I mean, I didn't mention this in my opening comments, but the university absolutely accepts its environmental responsibilities with regard to climate change and biodiversity. Of course, we have many distinguished scientists working on these issues. And we'll be announcing next week the adoption of a new environmental strategy for Oxford, Oxford University, that was agreed at our University Council on Monday, to achieve net zero carbon and biodiversity net gain across the university by 2035, putting in place new governance arrangements in the university, new reporting requirements for the university on environmental issues, establishing a new fund within the university to tackle £200 million over 15 years to improve our environmental performance, and also accepting the principle of offsetting in order to ensure that we do meet the net zero target by 2035. So the university, I think, is stepping up in this year of COP26, and we're pleased with the progress we're making on that.
Many thanks indeed, David. Quickly to either Bev or Sarah, any thoughts your side about coming together to deliver greater net zero environmental benefits, or to maximise social value in place from Oxford and the wider growth ecosystem? Bev, thank you.
Struggling to find my unmute button. I'll go first, Sarah, if it's okay. Yeah, I think one of the things that I've been absolutely amazed about working in the ARC space is the incredible talent that exists I mean, I was not surprised working in the Oxford and Oxfordshire ecosystem before that about talent, but it is unparalleled, really. And I mean, you can say those things because they're hard to quantify, but it feels very unparalleled. And so the opportunity that we have, and I know Councillor Brown has made this point many times within our ARC leadership group, anything we do as the collective should not be finding a way to water down to the lowest denominator. Everything we should be doing as a collaborative should be working up to the ambition of what we are trying to achieve. And if there is not consensus, then okay, fair enough. But where there is consensus, and I get a sense that there is nothing but consensus around pushing our environmental ambitions, then it does feel like those places that are most capable of leading, and that's not everywhere, let's be honest, they got an opportunity to bring a lot of other people with them in that journey. And so I think that's why there's a lot of people prepared to follow the leads of the big universities, of the cities and the major places that are actually leading on this agenda. And I think it's for the first time, I think we can feel like, rather than just an incremental approach where some places can achieve these things because they can, but most can't, we can actually tackle this in a way that actually means the whole can be lifted up. And if we're going to try to meet, if we are going to legally meet our requirements around carbon zero, it's going to be that kind of thinking and that kind of action that's going to be required, rather than over here it's okay, but over here we can't do it, therefore it's not okay. And we can't let that happen. So I think there's a real leadership void that is being filled here, not least of which by Oxford, Cambridge, but particularly the things that I'm seeing across the arc, there's a real opportunity for the UK as a whole, indeed the planet, but certainly the UK as a whole, to benefit from the leadership that's going on here. Really fantastic opportunity.
Many thanks, Bev. Sarah, can I invite you to come in, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of comments on the environmental sustainability, low carbon side. I think it's really exciting to see that Oxford is at the heart of some of the Industrial Strategy Challenge Fund demonstrator projects. We have the two projects that are taking place in Oxford and Oxfordshire, Energy Superhub Oxford and Project Leo. And I think these are fantastic exemplars because they bring together all of the assets that we have at our disposal. They bring in the industrial base, they bring in our companies, they bring in social enterprise, they bring in communities, they bring in the academic base. And I think that we have an opportunity to really to make the most of that and to make sure that we continue to be on the front foot and we continue this leadership position moving forward. And I think also we have to recognise that we have got a fantastic cadre of innovative companies that are operating within the Oxfordshire region, who again are at the forefront of bringing new solutions, new products and services to market in order to address some of these global challenges that we have. And the question of market and creating markets, I think, is essential and is actually something that can sometimes be neglected. But I think that some of the institutions and the governance organisation that we have within Oxford and the region can again play a leadership role in helping to create market opportunities for these products, for these companies to demonstrate their capability as a platform for taking forward their companies into a very positive growth story, both in the context of the UK, but also internationally. Just on your question of the social side, I've seen from the Q&A and also from the chat that there have been a number of things that have reflected on the issue of inclusive growth. So whether we talk about good growth or inclusive growth, it really is about creating opportunity for all and making sure that we bring everybody with us. And certainly, I think if I can speak on behalf of the innovative business community in Oxfordshire, there is a very strong sense of social responsibility and a desire to open up opportunities to the widest possible communities, and a commitment not to bring skills in from outside. Of course, there are many companies that need to bring skills in from an international labour market perspective, but we also have the opportunity to grow and retain skills within the region. And I think there's a very strong commitment to do that and to support that and to help communicate the kind of growth that we have the opportunity to create in Oxford, and to show people how that creates chances for them to be part of this.
Many thanks indeed, Sarah. And looking at the clock, I think it's time to wind down now. First and foremost, huge thanks for our fantastic panel this morning. Susan Brown, Sarah Hayward, Bev Hindle, Jeremy Long, David Prout. Thank you for giving up your time to debate the key issues from today's report. In terms of next steps, we were going to write to everyone who's registered or attended today to make sure you've got a copy of the report. And clearly we hope this can sort of help advance Oxford's case and the wider region's case, given to the government's plan for growth and all that comes in it. Now, Kwasi Kwarteng, our new business secretary, has derided the ancien regime of industrial strategy as a pudding without a theme. I would say, based on our report and the very encouraging debate and discussion today, we've got some very good ingredients for a growth pudding for Mr. Kwarteng to consider, one built around place, built around strength, built around maximising human potential, the skills, and leveraging unique strengths and assets, place leadership, and all that comes with it to deliver strong and sustainable growth into the future. So without any further ado, thank you again to our panelists. Thank you to everyone who's taken the time to register and attend today or is watching on YouTube catch up. On behalf of everyone at Localis, thank you very much. We'll call it a due, but we will be in touch for any further questions.